We do have a quorum. We've got supervisors online, and then in the room here, we've got Mr. Cooey, Mr. Brewer, and myself. I did hear from Supervisor Genta. She's not able to make it today. And then I know at least a couple of people need to leave by 3 o'clock. So we'll just need to be mindful of the time to make sure we can finish our business here today within that two-hour time frame. So proof of notification, there was proper proof of notification. I saw the email from Mr. Langreich and he posted it on the bulletin board as well. Agenda item number 3, looking for approval of the 17-point agenda before us today. So move. Second. Motion by Brewer, second by Cooey. All those in favor, you say aye. Aye. Okay, that motion carries. We have an approved agenda. Agenda item number 4, previous meeting minutes. So one question I just want to ask folks is the committee comfortable when we take roll call votes, not having the people who are either yay or nay listed, or would you rather have those listed? Because they are not listed at this point.
Is my mic on? No. There it is. Better?
I think so.
I think they have to be listed, Sean, because a lot of people, when they ask for roll call, want to be on record as either a yay or nay. So I think they should be listed wrong.
Okay, I see Supervisor Luck nodding.
That would be my understanding too. That's the purpose of it.
Okay, so I'd look for a motion to approve these minutes as long as the roll call votes get added to them at a later date.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Cooey, a second by Brewer. Any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, those meeting minutes are then approved with that change.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. C.
Yes, I didn't hear you take a roll call.
No, I didn't ask for one. Neither did anyone else.
Well,
This is for the last meeting. Finance and personnel, we had the budget before us and we took several roll call votes. And those weren't recorded in the minutes. So this is what we're discussing, is having those minutes changed to include that.
do people who are listening now outside of the meeting know who's present at the meeting? Who's without
Yes.
without a roll call?
Listed out who is here today. I'm talking about votes that have a roll call vote. I'm not talking about attendance.
I see. So did you take a roll call for attendance?
I just stated who was here. And we
Okay.
have 5 out of 7 members here. So no, typically at the committee level, we don't do a roll call for attendance. But the chair, according to our roles and responsibilities document, is responsible for announcing and I think determining whether or not a quorum is present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No problem. Okay, so under the finance section, including purchasing and contracts, agenda item number 5, American Rescue Plan grant application process for early childhood education and child care providers.
Mr. Chair, I'm looking today for a motion to accept the proposed Richland County Early Childhood Education and Child Care Providers, ERPA, ARPA, grant application and process, and have the county administrator solicit and advertise for applications. Background on this item is as per previous finance and personnel action, the committee has allocated to $335,990.90 in county ARPA funds for grants up to $150 to local early childhood education centers, prospective education centers and child care operations located in Richland County to assist the community with increased accessibility to care, increased safety, healthcare in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Attached is a recommended grant application which we will review. It also has a self-certification and process guidance packet And the proposed timeline for this grant process is listed here with an October 5th decision date for yourselves, solicited on the 6th, grant application deadline on the 29th. To you folks on November 2nd. If needed discussion is necessary past that, we would have an opportunity on December 7th with you folks, and then awarding of grants on December 14th. The ARPA grant draft located in your folder is item 05A. A brief kind of layout of that application process is the top here is the intent again on kind of where it's coming from and the purpose of it. We have the grant eligibility kind of defined in here. To qualify for the grant, up to $150, must be physically located in Richland County, be a state regulated childhood education or child care provider by the time of the award, be able to demonstrate the documentation or a business plan, essentially the need and how the monies would impact expanding services or making services safer. U.S. Department Treasury guidance is then located in here, and this kind of goes from the interim rule on saying what the purpose of the ARPA funds were. Following that, then we have our intention statements of what we are trying to do with these funds. These two bullets here of new, expanded, or enhanced early learning services, including pre-kindergarten, Head Start, partnerships between pre-kindergarten programs and local education authorities or administration of those services, or 2, to expand high-quality child care to provide safe and supportive care for children. The next portion here you'll see is the application process, again using the timeline that we had just reviewed. Signing up our new assistant to the administrator, Cheryl Dull, is the receiving point and point of contact for the grant process. Timeline, as we had indicated, we'd be looking for grants to come, applications to come back to us on the 29th this month with final board decision on the 14th. Required documentation that we'd be looking for is then listed. A limited term of support, essentially saying that this is a kind of a one-time intended installment. Public records notification that any types of applications and materials submitted may be susceptible to public records, as well as then reporting of expenditures so that we're getting information back to maintain our reporting compliance that we have up through the portal. The next item here, and there's several changes that have been made to this after posting, is the self-certification. This is kind of the document that which the applicant is attesting and self-certifying that they're going to be taking these, that they meet these criteria and they understand then the intentions of this. I'll let you kind of run your eyes down through this. There's two added bullets on the bottom that are not on the draft that you have, but I recommend. Bullets 5 and 6 added is essentially the first one, 5, comes from recommendation from Corporation Counsel. If awarded, the applicant provider assumes all responsibilities for all rules and regulations regarding reporting and expenditures defined under the guidance of this grant, state regulations, and federal codes. And then the second bullet, item number 6, if awarded, the applicant provider certifies that services and admittance into their program shall not discriminate on the basis of the child or the caretaker's race, color, religion, creed, gender, gender identity, gender expression, national origin and ancestry, disability within limitations of reasonable accommodation of service, marital status, sexual orientation, or military status. Next document then is a 2-page document, is the actual grant application, the different information that the providers will be filling out, providing to us, with the big one coming on page 2, essentially the narrative of, if awarded, briefly describe how funds will be used. And then on the bottom is a frequent an FNQ that kind of captures some of the information that we're requesting, the purposes of it, how to obtain those types of informations, and then a point of contact again for reaching out. Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks for that overview. So one question I have is, do we have a time period that someone would have to operate a child care center to get these funds? Is there anything in the federal guidance about, say they open up a child care center, take the money, and then they close within a year or something like that? How is that handled, or do you know?
We would not have that specified in our grants right now. We would be saying that they are a regulatory, they have regulatory of a certification or permit established at the time that they're being awarded to it. From what I'm talking with Stephanie with Health and Human Services, that is a bit of a process. It takes a bit of an initiative to have those things in place
presumably somebody that's going through that effort to get that is determined on making their program work. But as far as a recoupment back, if they're not providing services for so long, that is not currently in the grant application language.
Okay, that's the only thing that I can think of that perhaps maybe might be a good idea to add, just to make sure that, say, a center would open up, close down, and then maybe the money could be reallocated. You know, if for some reason they, I know in one instance, you know, it's a building that religious organization is going to own. So what if they kept that for their church, but then didn't have that? Not saying that they have any intention of doing that at all. I'm just saying, what if that happened? What would be the accountability process or the payback process? So
Yeah, I don't have that addressed.
Okay.
In the language recommended today.
Okay, what about other committee members? Any questions or comments on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Mr. C.
did I hear Mr. Langrick say that this grant will be administered or monitored through Human Services? Through Health and Human Services?
I can answer that, Mr. Chair. The answer is no. I did reach out, though, to Health and Human Services to review the language to make sure that we're using the correct language and jargon to match up with different, I think the language comes down through the Department of Families, Children and Families, to make sure we're kind of lining up with the same language and expectations.
And so how long has public notice been made or is being made to solicit to offer this grant to various groups?
Hasn't at this time. A solicitation period would be tomorrow through the 29th. It would be a 23-day notification.
And how is that being advertised?
A proposal is to send out to through local media, through our papers, through radio, on our website, and by word of mouth, spreading out to several of our partners that have expressed interest in this.
And so the qualification of an organization is determined by the federal government?
Well, the qualifications of being regulated by the state would be done through the state. Then awarding the grants, the language specifies that it's at the sole discretion of the county. I would be bringing it before this body to make recommendations to the county board.
So there'll be a certain criteria that we would follow or evaluate to approve?
Based on the language that we have for the purposes of it, the two intent purposes, and then the information that comes back through the application and potential documentation and business plan.
So you would evaluate and make a recommendation to us, I presume.
Most likely, and then it would be up for you folks then to further recommend that to the county board for resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Langrick.
Okay, anyone else? All right, so we're looking for a motion to accept the proposed grant application and process that Mr. Langrick's laid out and have the administrator go ahead and solicit and advertise for applications. Okay, motion by Cooey.
I'll second.
Second by Brewer. Does anyone have any opinions on what I was bringing up about having a payback if the center doesn't operate for a specified amount of time? Does anyone think that's a good or a bad idea?
I think it's valid.
Okay, anyone
I don't know how we tie it in.
anyone else with thoughts on that?
Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it seems like it's in our best interest, in the taxpayers' best interest to do that. I'm wondering if maybe our corporation counsel would have to be like, are we allowed to say that we can make them pay it back? Is there some language in the ARPA funds that would help us with that?
Recouping the funds after they've been solicited out could be a challenge based on the financial position that this organization's in and reasons on why they're closing. And then the other, I mean, it's appropriate to ask for that type of language to be put in there. Hopefully, we're evaluating that on the front end, though, of asking for documentation to show a business plan and that you're going to be a solvent operation. But yes, we can get corporation counsel's guidance on the appropriate language to have that in there. But we would still, though, have to define then how long we envision then how long operations should be in place so that we know what the mark is.
Well, I'm not suggesting we amend what you've got in front of us, but maybe just look into it and just report back to us on what you'd recommend there, if anything.
Okay.
After talking to Mr. Wendell about
That
it.
also could be firmed up perhaps with a supplemented document that actually has the grant award and then having the further stipulations laid out on the actual grant awarding process.
Okay.
So that
Mr. Chair,
after a review, we can solicit.
Yeah, Mr. Brewer?
it would seem that upon further reflection that the due diligence that we put forth in examining the business plan, probably the safeguard that we need. You know, if somebody sets up a child care center and then something like a pandemic comes along or something, I mean, they can hardly be held to their commitment that they'd made. So I'm wondering if due diligence is the way to answer this question and take the recommendation of the county administrator.
Yep, that makes sense to me also. So, any other discussion on this?
It sounds, Mr. Chairman,
Uh-huh.
it sounds to me that to some degree we may be going on the fly with this. Perhaps not all the specific guidelines are there, and we may have to deal with some issues as they crop up without having a prescription for them. Is that correct, Mr. Langrick?
Yes, if you put it in context of the ARPA funds themselves, we're still operating on interim rules as well. We don't have finalized rules. So the whole kind of a thing is a learning thing that we're doing as a nation on how to distribute it and how to have the check and balance on ensuring that it's meeting the intents not only of the federal government, but then down through the state's intents, and then the intent is of you folks as a governing county body.
Okay, well, thanks for batting around my idea or concern there, and I'm satisfied. So I appreciate that. There's no other discussion on this. All those in favor of the motion to release this application to the public, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that motion carries because everyone's in favor. So thanks for putting that together. That was really helpful. And by the way, congratulations to Ms. Dole. I didn't know that you were the assistant to the administrator. So welcome in that new role here. That's great to hear. Agenda item number 6, recommending an award resolution for capital improvement borrowing.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a recommended resolution awarding the sale of $1,050,000 taxable general obligation promissory notes to the Richland County Board. Background on this item is that Richland County will be selling the promissory notes. This will be on the 26th of October, 2021 at 10 a.m. We'll go out to market according to authorization granted through the previous county board resolution. If you remember last month, county board, we did the authorization resolution, which required 3/4 votes. Carol Worth, our municipal advisor, will be preparing that resolution that day with the final recipient of the awards for the short-term loan financing. The purpose of the short-term loan financing, again, will be the purchase of recurring capital improvement expenses. Major expenses that we're trying to capture, again, with our short-term loaning program this year is going to be the highway salt shed for $300,000, county trunk road improvements of $350,000, MIS computer network server infrastructure for department operations. Understanding that MIS is going to be handling it for us, but it's in a service support role to our other departments. Sheriff's Office, 2 squad cars and patrol, Sheriff's Office, jail camera system. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so looking for a motion here to recommend this to the county board later this month.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Luck. Second by Cooey. One quick question I have, so I think I know the answer to this, but and Mr. Elder's here today. We already have a salt shed. Do you call this a salt shed too, or do you call this a sand salt shed? How should we be saying this to the public is my question, because someone told me, don't we already have a salt shed?
It would be a sand and salt shed. It's a mixture of sand and salt.
Okay, okay. So we should be calling it a sand and salt shed.
Correct.
Okay, okay. Very minor detail, but someone asked me that, so just to clarify for anyone who might have that question.
Clarify that, make sure we have that annotated on the resolution as well. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I know from being on the highway committee that it's to cover that big pile of sand and salt that we've got out at the county shop. Get a cover over that so it doesn't leach away.
Okay, anyone else on this one? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Okay, I'm in favor as well, so that one carries unanimously. Agenda item number 7, Richland County Banking and Account Authorization for Jeff. Is it
Evans.
How do you spell it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
EV.
Sorry.
EVEN. Okay, so Richland County Banking and Account Authorization for Jeff Even, incoming treasurer. I've seen it spelled a couple different ways, so I thought we better just
All
clear it
coming
up today.
All probably coming from me. My apologies.
No worries. Yeah, so Mr. Langreich.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to approve Jeff Even, incoming county treasurer, with banking and account authorization for Richland County accounts at or with Richland County Bank, State Local Government Investment Pool, Royal Bank, Westby Credit Union, Community First Bank, etc. This action by the body will approve this authorization. Copies of the minutes from the meetings will be presented to the organizations as needed, and Jeff will have a profile established with necessary account access granted, Mr. Chair.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve Jeff Even to be on these accounts.
Second.
Motion by Cooey, second by Brewer. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that one carries unanimously. So he's on our bank accounts now, or soon will be. Agenda item number 8, appropriation of fund number 75 funds for replacements of county board iPads.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to recommend purchasing 16 new iPads for the county board members to replace aged iPads using Fund 75. 2015 Richland County Board Supervisors were issued iPads to reduce the cost of increased efficiency for the county. The implementation of the iPad program has been successful. The iPads will no longer be updated with iOS, which means they'll soon no longer function with programs such as WebEx, Zoom, and the PDF Expert. Normal life cycle of an iPad is 4 years and 3 months, and we've been using these for 6 years. Quotes obtained through CWG, SHI, and Apple. The cost of the iPads at the date of this writing are subject to change is $335.15 each, and that is for the 64 gigabyte with Wi-Fi access iPads. Total cost is $5,362.40. Anticipating using Fund 75 from overages that remain in place underneath the allocations for the child support security wall. We had budgeted for $20,000 for that project. I believe we had Randy put in a wall for less than, I think it was a few hundred, and then we allocated a few thousand from that line item for computers for child support. So we do have some in that queued allocation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion today is this to approve the purchases or to recommend it to the county board?
This will be to approve the purchases, and the purchase amount authorization can be granted by myself through Director Scott.
Okay, so this is just a motion to approve the purchase of these 16 new iPads that we're looking for right now.
I have a question before.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. C.
Why is the number 16? Wouldn't there be 21?
I think there's been some that have been updated since. This is the 16 oldest, if memory serves. And
Oh, I see.
Director Scott, or if John, if you know those.
Oh, yeah.
That, excuse me, if I may, that is correct, Clinton. We replaced several of the iPads due to mishaps, or there were 3 of them that initially didn't get iPads when they came onto the board. So we only need to do 16 at this time.
Yes, and then there was one that somebody left out in the rain.
That would be a mishap. I was being kind.
And one that got run over by a school bus, so.
Wow, this is interesting stories here. I wonder what happened with that third one.
It's honorable that everybody's owning up to it, though. Thank you.
Accidents happen. Okay, still looking for a motion to approve these purchases. Yes, Mitch?
So moved. Listen, my brewer?
Second.
Second by Luck. All those in favor of approving, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All right, that motion carries. We're getting new iPads. Agenda item number 9 under budget, review of published 2022 summary. This is one I did ask that be on the agenda so we could take a look at what's going into the newspaper.
Mr. Chair, motion to be looking here for a motion to accept a report of the published 2022 budget summary. Background on this is I'll be kind of walking you through what is going to be published. If you look here, and let me share. It initially put in your folders a document that had a spreadsheet breakdown with several sheets in a landscape format. This is the publishing that you'll see in the paper in a profile format, and I'll try my best here to kind of walk you through what you're looking at. So on the top here, you'll see a 2020 budget that will be changed. It is caught in the publication will come out with 2022. But the overall breakdown, if you can visualize this top section of the summary, if you look from the governmental fund down to where it says total expenditures, this is a section that is covering our revenues and our expenditures. It excludes Pine Valley and Highway in this. Okay, so this is our governmental fund. And going across the columns, you'll see that it's the actual for 2020, the actual halfway through this current year of 2021. The third column then is the actual estimated or actual and estimated. And this is kind of taken as an estimate or a best guess because we don't, of course, have all revenues and expenditures accounted for, and some of them even come in past into the next year. And we have our currented budget amount for 2021, this current year, and then the proposed budget for 2022. The breakdown on this kind of format that you see right here is kind of dictated to us to some extent through state statute 65.90. where they lay out for municipals on how budgets are kind of to be presented. You'll see kind of specifically where it kind of goes into the general expenditures. It's broken down to the characteristics or the categories of public safety, health and human services, etc. Our revenues, we do have some condensing when we have like public charges for services. We include several different lines as well as regulations and compliances. But this top section is breaking down, again, what our revenues are and what our expenditures are for what is considered our governmental fund. Below that, then, you'll see a breakdown of the property tax levy for that. Then undesignated general fund or fund balances. Below that, then, you'll see then our 2 proprietary funds. You'll see the Pine Valley Enterprise Fund, and you'll see the Highway Internal Service Fund. Those are 2 proprietary funds for auditing purposes that are falling outside of what is considered general government. You'll see the same breakdowns across with their operating revenues and expenses. You'll see Pine Valley operating at a net zero of 9.2 and 9.2 roughly, meaning that there is no operational expenses that are going to be attributed to that for operations. The highway, you'll see in operations of essentially 2.3 with an expenditure of 3.9. Then inferring that there is operational levy coming to support the total expenditure costs. And you'll see fund balances underneath there, 2.1 of remaining balance anticipated for Pine Valley, 5.2 remaining fund balance anticipated for Highway. Do keep in mind, though, that both of these organizations are carrying significant types of liabilities for the unallocated. And so then that's our 2 proprietary funds. Below that, then you'll see a section on the composition of property tax by fund. This is where you're going to see the actual proposed tax levy limit, or I'm sorry, the tax levy of the 10.4 and change. Below that then becomes the levy comparison from previous years. Sticking out then is the changes you'll see between the 2019 and the 2020 years. And that was our impacts from our debt service levy that impacted. We had the Fund 75s and the Fund 92s both arriving in 2020 on the tax levy. Below that, then you'll see that our equalized value of county properties and the changes across going from left to right for equalized value, the values, percentage of increase, tax levy, tax percent increase, etc. And then on the bottom is our obligation of our legal notifications signed by you folks. Does that help kind of clarify what gets posted to the public, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, it's great to see it and be able to let the committee take a look at it, because I have noticed that our names are always signed to it, but we've never discussed it, you know, so I thought maybe folks might want to look at it and see if you have any questions.
I do apologize. If there are very, very meaty questions, I might get lost, and my financial folks are, our financial officer is covering down with our accounting supervisor right now. Our accounting supervisor has given notice that he has taken additional opportunities, so our financial staff right now is kind of strapped for getting some things tidied up.
Yeah, and also I don't think we want to set the expectation that we can change anything. I know that this is going to be published this Thursday, the first publication, I can tell at the bottom, and I'm sure that ship has sailed already. As far as getting it into the paper, it's probably being printed today. Even
Yes, yep.
Something like that. So, yeah, so I don't need this even answered, but the levy percent increase or the value percent increase, percent change in values, I see different percent things around. You know, if I was telling someone what the change was to their property taxes, I think I would say it's being reduced by, your property taxes are being reduced by 0.4% this coming year. That's the proposal. I don't know if I'd say 0.0044%, because that seems to me to be a little misleading. Like last year, the increase to property taxes was 18.52%. It wasn't 0.1852%. That could, I mean, I understand it because I've been looking at this for a while, but now that I look at it, I've never thought about how that maybe doesn't come across real straightforward to folks, but maybe the state requires that. It just seems like I wouldn't understand that.
In some of the bottom parts here, there may be some adjustments that we do for our format going forward and still maintaining compliance. Every county, every municipality has a little bit of a different flavor. So there is room to adjust this to make it more digestible to the public. But we're kind of using for this year and then kind of the inherited kind of format that's been passed down, but we are kind of evaluating to see if there's a better idea for it going forward.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, go ahead.
I agree that the train has already left the station, so I move that we approve this.
Okay, so yeah, we're looking for a motion to accept the report.
Accept, that's good.
Okay, motion by Seat. Second by Cooey. All those in favor of accepting the report, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thanks for bringing that forward to us. Much appreciated. Agenda item number 10 under personnel, recommending a resolution to ratify a collective bargaining agreement with the Wisconsin Professional Police Association.
Shared here 1 second, Mr. Chair. Looking today for a motion to recommend a resolution to ratify the collective bargaining agreement with Wisconsin Professional Police Association to extend from 2022 through 2024. This action will forward the collective bargaining agreement as drafted, and a resolution is drafted defining the changes to the county board for their consideration. Recommendation is the resolution language that you'll see attached, drafted by Attorney Anderson, captures in the whereases the main essential points that were negotiated and bargained between this body and representation of the Wisconsin, our WPPA union members in bullets 1 through 19. Then you'll also see in your folder then the drafted changes to the collective bargaining agreement for 2022 to 2024. So if there's detailed questions on it, we can go into it, but at that I would turn it over to yourself, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to recommend a resolution to ratify a collective bargaining agreement to the county board. This goes to the county board, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion by Luck,
No, second.
second by Brewer. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All right, I'm in favor as well, so that motion carries unanimously. Agenda item number 11, a resolution for retirement for Julie Keller.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to recommend resolution to the county board recognizing the service of Julie Keller, county treasurer, for her 32 years of service with Richland County. Treasurer Keller, as you know, will be retiring on October 8th, this coming Friday. Resolution language will read, whereas Ms. Julie Keller was hired on January 9th, 1989 as the deputy treasurer and was appointed county treasurer on April 1st, 1996. I hope those dates are correct, Julie. Thank you. And retired on October 8th, 2021. And whereas the county board wants to express its sincere appreciation to Ms. Julie Keller for over 32 years of dedicated service to Richland County, now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that the county board hereby expresses its sincere appreciation to Ms. Julie Keller for over 32 years of dedicated service in the treasurer's office. And be it further resolved, the county board wishes Ms. Keller a long and happy retirement, and be it further resolved, the county clerk shall send a copy. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so looking for a motion on this. Motion by Cooey,
Second.
second by Brewer.
Discussion.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. Seat.
When does the incoming treasurer take the oath of office?
We have it lined up for the 11th.
That's Monday. Oh, I see. Good, thank you. That's his first day on the job.
Well, he's been on the job now for 3 weeks in training, but that'll be his first day as an appointed official, first business day.
Thank you, Mr. Langrick.
May I ask, the retirement get together is Friday?
Okay, so there's a retirement party from 1 to 4, and where's that located? Here in the county boardroom? Okay. And I wanted to say too, congratulations on the ceremony that happened, I think it was last Monday, in front of the courthouse with our state representatives and senator. So we really appreciate everything, and I'm sure we'll get to come in person and appreciate you there as well. So thanks for all your service to the county. I suppose you won't be, will you not be at the county board meeting? You'll be done by then. Okay, all right, okay. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All right, so that motion carries unanimously. Hopefully she's making her phone number available to you for questions. Agenda item number 12, discussion on options to promote employee vaccinations. So I'm going to kick this one off because I asked for this to be on the agenda today. And I know Mr. Langreck, he prepared a cover sheet. I just asked if we could have something open-ended. We did, unfortunately we've had a death in our family due to COVID. My father-in-law was not vaccinated and got COVID and passed away last Tuesday. My mother-in-law, unfortunately, she recovered. She wasn't vaccinated either, but she's, I'd say, still struggling somewhat, like a lot of people. They were both in their 60s. And fortunately, my husband's grandmother, who's 87, was vaccinated and had almost no symptoms, and she's fine. So there's been a lot of just on a personal level, I kind of wanted to avoid this one because, as a county board representative, because I know how controversial this is. But on a personal level, this happening last week just kind of prodded me to say, I think we need to talk about it. I'd like to just kind of put this out there for the committee. Really, I think, the way that I asked Mr. Langreich to phrase this was to focus it on employee vaccinations and, hopefully how we can just discuss options to promote these. I know there's, a lot of concern from a segment of the population about requiring them, mandating them. So what I did this morning is I just Googled an article. I just Googled, how to improve vaccination rates for COVID-19. And I came up with this article. I think it's from some HR, what's it called? HRexecutive.com. They listed out 6 strategies. These seem to be, fairly a reasonable high-level view about what could be done to encourage vaccinations from employees. And then, fortunately, Mr. Rislow had seen this on the agenda. I don't know if he's online today. I don't think he's in the room here today, but he sent the following email, and I'm just going to read it out to everyone. So he said, just for the record, as of late September, I'm sorry, need to back up. I see today's Finance and Personnel Committee agenda includes a discussion about ways to increase vaccination numbers amongst county employees. Just for the record, as of late September, Pine Valley's employee vaccination numbers were 81.1% have had both doses, 83.3% have had at least the first dose, and steps we took included educate, 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 over and over, plenty of postings. A letter from our medical director to our staff of his opinion, vaccination days, times held right here, which he has in parentheses, convenient. And for stragglers, we helped them find places where they could get vaccinated. Helped a few get registered for an appointment. Early on, we used stimulus dollars and gave a $20 bill to every employee who got vaccinated. So another idea I'd seen somewhere that's not in that article that I included, that I had included in today's meeting materials, but was another company was giving vacation days for people who chose to get vaccinated. So a little heavy, sorry to throw that on everyone, but it's been on our minds a lot this past week. And
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go ahead.
You started showing us that article, but we only got step number 1. I think there were 5 steps there, weren't there?
There were, yep. And I'm happy to read those out real quickly, not just the headings. One was to provide education. That was the first strategy in the article. Number 2 was be consistent about messaging. Number 3 was to use financial incentives. Number 4 was to give workers time off, and that was paid time off to get the vaccines. Number 5 was to help workers find a vaccine. And number 6 was to utilize credible messengers.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, Mr. Seat.
if we gave a financial incentive to those who have not yet been vaccinated, I wonder how that would fly with the employees who've already been vaccinated on their own.
Well, might not fly so well. So I think that's, I'm sure a lot of companies give people give a financial incentive for people who have already had the vaccine as well, on top of people who get them.
Yeah.
I'm not assuming that it's only you give people past a certain date the financial incentive. Maybe some companies do that though. I don't know.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, Supervisor Luck, go ahead.
are there ARPA funds that have been specifically designated for trying to get people vaccinated, like as the financial incentive or helping with educational materials and that? Does anyone know if there's ARPA funds?
Well, that was the
Designated?
case at Pine Valley, Miss Luck. I don't know about the county.
There's different allocations for contagion prevention, as well as premium pays for considered essential workforce. Also then we have our lost revenue funds, which are more discretionary, that can be used for a larger spectrum of different needs like this. If we do go into an additional premium pay, I'd ask though that I think it'd be a great thing, but at the same time be mindful that that's going to require time to administer, new pay codes and a pay system. There are different moving pieces that go along with it, just to be mindful of.
Yeah, I would think, especially with staffing turnover in the administrator clerk's office right now, we'd want to be mindful of what can we do to make it easy for.
If it was something that we want to do this and we want to do this before the end of the year, that would put a lot of challenge on us to be able to administratively perform that. Reaching out into the next year, get past the closeout of the year, there'd be more bandwidth, if you will. So not to rain on the incentive of trying to get folks vaccinated through a monetary type of an incentive program, but just be mindful that, like all good ideas, they do come with some efforts behind them.
Mr. Chair, I understand that the vaccines will continue to remain free. Is that right, Mr. Langbrook?
To the best of my knowledge, I don't know that that's come off yet. All vaccinations are still free to the best of my knowledge. If there's any types of fees that go against your insurance provider, some of them you may have to still provide an insurance type of a card.
I have one more comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, go ahead.
It is possible, maybe, that vaccinations might be available only during work hours. I'm sure they don't go beyond that now, and so maybe, like voting, we could give people an hour or two off to go get their vaccine if they could only get it during work hours.
Mr. Chair,
Yep, go ahead.
do we know what our current vaccination rate is for the rest of our employees other than Pine Valley?
Not that I'm tracking.
So we don't actually know at all. For all we know, we could have almost everyone vaccinated. Do we really have no way of knowing?
I don't think we can ask.
That can't be true because companies are mandating that they have to have it, so they must have to ask.
Maybe, yeah, possibly.
Well, in Pine Valley clearly surveyed their employees because they have the figures. So I don't think it's not that we can't ask. I think there's some sensitivity around it. Probably the way you ask is probably, pretty, there'd need to be some care used with that. I guess, with the American Rescue Plan funds, one thing I'm wondering is, a few of these ideas in here, I think are good ones about the messaging, the education. Mr. Rizla had that idea as well. And then utilizing credible messengers. And I guess I don't necessarily see that. I guess Mr. Langrick, you'd have to say kind of who could carry out something like that within the county organization, but I wouldn't necessarily see it be the administrator's office, carrying out all of that. We have a health and human services department and we have a public health officer. And so I'm assuming that the HHS could take some of this on, say if some of that American Rescue Plan money was carved out for education and messaging. So I'm wondering to some extent if those portions of these ideas could be referred to the HHS board to see if they can take on some of this as far as education for employees and messaging for employees.
I can ask out through Director Thorson on how much of that is appropriate. I just know that there are some separations, obviously, where health and human services are intended for the community, not necessarily for the county employee as an organization, like a public health nurse treat folks from a community and community members, but we're not able to kind of use it as a sick bay for for health conditions for employees. So there may be some types of separations there in context of putting consistent messaging for all employers that can access the same types of information and do the same types of promotions on where to find vaccines and where to get those types of things. We do have initiatives with weekly or bi-weekly kind of releases on COVID updates that do come out through Angie Risner on giving COVID updates. We do try to pass those down on the occasion through departments on where they can be seeking out testing. Right now we're doing testing initiatives again on Mondays out through the fairgrounds. So those are things we can talk about on how to further educate to make sure it's getting pushed down through the organizational ranks, the same types of materials that are being pushed to the community.
And I think you all do HHS staff that does an incredible job of educating folks, because we had to then get tested because we wanted to make sure that we didn't contract it when we went over and helped after my mother-in-law finished with quarantine. And it was so easy to go to the website. Where do we go get a test? It was all listed out. It was a lot better than Vernon County, by the way, because I looked up there too, since I live kind of close to Vernon County. So I think our HHS department just does an incredible job. But what I'm specifically talking about is employees. And I think the reason is, the other thing is, we talk about our health insurance costs and how those have gone up. They went up by 16%. We ate all of that this year. If people choose not to get a vaccine, of course that's their decision to make. But then as an employer, if someone ends up in the ICU, then we all know from our health insurance provider that we all pay that. The employees pay that, the taxpayers pay it, the county as an organization pays for someone's decision to not go get vaccinated if they end up in the ICU. And the amount of money that costs is on top of the tragedy, which is the worst thing of this. And I don't want to just focus too much on money, because it's causes a lot of chaos and tragedy. And then on the county side, we need employees we need to keep working too. We need all our essential employees and then everyone else at the county, and if someone decides to not get a vaccine, that also hurts the public and hurts the rest of the county operation. It hurts the rest of our employees. So the reason I wanted to bring this up was more for our employees and what can we do to encourage them to promote getting the vaccine. I don't want to push employees to run away if they're really opposed to the vaccine. I don't want to suggest that we only want vaccinated people here, but at the same time, it helps everyone out if folks get vaccinated.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Mr. Brewer.
Sorry, Mr. Seep, I'm first. Certainly, it should not be a punishment. I mean, you can, gotta be the carrot to get people to do it. And if we can come up with some ARPA funds to incentivize the whole process, I'm for that. But I don't want to see us make it a condition of employment, that's for sure.
Yep, Mr. Seep.
I think that obviously there are exceptions for religious reasons or other medical reasons that people are entitled to claim a right to an exception. And we do mandate we can mandate mask and require social distancing if the situation warrants it. And we're told that social distancing and wearing a mask is very effective. I think that maybe we should perhaps consider stopping there and just go with encouraging people to, through education and the other points that you list, and let it go at that. I think we can't afford turnover, and we don't want to force people out of their job. Certainly, I think it's a difficult problem for us because we do run the risk of having our experience rating with the insurance company go sky high if we have 3 or 4 people that have to go into the hospital and go under a ventilator. So it's a hard decision to make for the county and for the employees. I think we have to find a golden mean here of some sort.
Can you repeat that? A what? A golden what?
A golden mean, a happy medium.
Oh, a happy medium. Yes. Okay. All right. Well,
Mr. Chair,
yep,
I
go ahead.
recommend that we forward this question to involve our county health officer and Tracy Thorson, perhaps convene a little subcommittee and a meeting, some sort, have a meeting, let's have a meeting, and talk about this, not only employees of the county, but then countywide. What are things that we could do? And I'm not talking about, I don't think we're talking about ARPA funds to incentivize the county as a whole, but certainly for employees, we could talk about that.
So are you suggesting like a joint meeting between finance and personnel and the HHS board? to
Yes, I am.
Discuss this? Okay. So I don't know that we,
I would say that we take action then underneath future agenda items, if you
Okay.
could make a recommendation for such.
okay, that sounds good. Let's handle it under there. Anyone else want to say anything before we move on?
Well, there are legal implications, and certainly I'm sure that Mr. Langreck will utilize the wisdom of our corporation counsel.
Okay. All right. So thanks for entertaining that discussion on that. So I think we'll look for future agenda items, perhaps on that one.
Did we act on Mr. Brewer's motion?
We're just going to handle it as like we do with other future agenda items. We'll just state it, and usually we figure out how to dispose of those offline. Is typically how we do that.
We had this one agendaed specifically for discussion with no actions intended. So the actions of, we would like underneath a future agenda item to consider a meeting with Health and Human Services or to bring back options or something of that to be addressed at that item.
And certainly anyone can always, I guess, make a motion to that we address something at the next meeting or at a joint meeting, and we can handle that under future agenda items.
Yep.
Typically, we've just heard ideas, and then we've walked through them and to make sure that we're addressing all of those. So if the committee feels like you want to do a motion, under agenda item number 16, we can do that when we get there. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 13, additional charges for room and parking at training and conferences.
Mr. Chair, potential 2 motions here today. First one, motion to approve additional lodging rate of $96 per night for 2 nights, which includes parking fee for Treasurer's State Conference in October. And then motion to approve additional lodging expenses for Supervisor Marty Brewer, additional lodging rate of $109 per night for 2 nights, which was negotiated rate for the Wisconsin Counties Association meeting in La Crosse. Background on this, and more hotels, centers have additional fees beyond the state rate. Our handbook authorizes us a government rate on rooms currently set at $82. Authorization allow payment of these two additional funds to these employees, and that again would be for Jeff Even and Marty Brewer. The authority language is put in here for the handbook that allows discretion to finance and personnel to have final authority over all matters of this handbook, except Finance and Personnel Committee shall make recommendations to the county board for all matters relating to salary levels, position reclassifications, and the creation or elimination of positions. The final decision shall be made by the county board. So I'm seeing this as you folks have, you have authority here at the committee level to deviate in regards to a per diem type of an issue. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so let's, hopefully we can get a motion on the table here to approve both changes. So anyone need me to read those changes again? Okay, motion by Cooey,
A second.
second by Luck. Any discussion on these?
I think we have to review the language. It historically, when you did go someplace and they said, hey, state rate, you would get state rate, but now more and more places have state rate plus parking or state rate plus some other type of fee. We get taxes waived and things like that, but then there's all these little ancillary things that linger on the end that they don't waive.
I asked for this, obviously, to come before this august group, and I'd like to get and probably we need to refer this over to rules and resolutions, but I'd like to have a policy and a procedure and for going to conferences, so you're not ashamed to book a hotel, or you're not ashamed to turn in a bill. I think I was the only one of 4 people who attended the WCA who actually stayed up in La Crosse. I had to go up on Sunday to go to the business meeting of the WCA, so it didn't make any sense for me to come home and then go back again. And I know that Clint commuted back and forth for 2 days. I know that one of our members, I think, took advantage of a family member and stayed with her son. And Steve, I think, commuted back and forth. So, and I'm not sure if those people had known that, yes, they could book lodging and not have to feel ashamed about it. I did encounter counties at the WCA. They had half their board there. And
That's correct.
it was all, and not saying that we have to be like just to use an example, a Grant County, for instance, or a Sauk County, some of our wealthier neighbors, but I want to encourage participation in the county's association and the things that can really, we do have a summary of all the breakout sessions that we attended. Clint has put that together, and I would ask that anyone who wants to see that, it can be shared. And I think we made some valuable contacts. We got some valuable information. Like if you've been to conferences, some of it was, but some of it was right on point and dealt with the issues that are facing us as counties. So, in fact, the last session that we attended talked about the terrible, terrible, terrible state that we will be in if our IS system is taken over by a hostile takeover and then some ransomware.
So I'm just going to go ahead and ask a question at this point. So Rule 16 addresses reimbursement for supervisors while engaged in county business, overnight lodging, meals. So reimbursement may be paid for other business-related expenses in an amount reasonable under the circumstances if approved by the supervisor's appropriate county board committee. And I digested all this. It's pretty complicated. I guess I don't understand all of Rule 16, but is Rule 6, did Rule 16 not allow for the expense to be made as it was made, or?
No, I think it did, Sean, but what I'm talking about is establishing a policy where we encourage maybe half of our board to attend or a third of them on a rotational basis, maybe something like that. You know, the WCA has a conference once a year. That is the state that we just attended, but they also have a legislative conference in the winter, which would be good for chairman, vice chairman, maybe chair of this committee to attend. So I would like to see some thought put into this, so it's not just a off the top of our head kind of thing.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm a little confused because we have an agenda item on WCA summary and future participation, but we're on agenda item number 13, which is additional charges
I'm sorry.
for this. So that's okay. I don't understand why we're being asked to make this motion to approve this if Rule 16 covers it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, Mr. Seat.
I think I remember some of the history. There was a time when anybody could go to a meeting, and then when budgetary issues came up a few years ago, it was limited to a few. And there was one year when we said none would go except the chair. But generally, if anyone on the board could go to one of these conferences. The other issue is that with the people who did not avail themselves of the lodging and drove back and forth every day, I hope it's understood that they are entitled to mileage both ways. They're not collecting they're not spending money for lodging, but they are entitled to mileage both ways if they go back and forth every day.
Okay, so back to this additional lodging rate approval that's on our agenda. I think we need to stay on the agenda here.
Well, I move we approve it.
Okay, so you're making a motion to approve additional lodging rate of $96 per night for 2 nights.
No, $109 and something.
Okay, so let's handle the second one first then. I'm going to read that just so we're all clear about what we're talking about. This is a motion to approve additional lodging expenses for Supervisor Marty Brewer, approving lodging rate of $109 per night for 2 nights, which was the negotiated rate for the Wisconsin Counties Association meeting in La Crosse. So you're making that motion, Mr. Seat?
If that covers Mr. Brewer's expense, I make that motion. If he had to pay more than that, we should reimburse him for it.
Did someone?
Covers that they mistakenly charged the tax on the, but Derek got that removed.
Okay, Ms. Dole, are you taking minutes? Okay, so did someone make a motion already about this? Did I miss that?
I did.
Okay, so we got Mr. Cooey with a motion and Ms. Luck with a second, and that was a motion for both things at once. Okay, so Mr. Seat, what I just read, that's here, and then it's also a motion to approve additional lodging rate of $96 per night for 2 nights, which includes parking fee for Treasurer State Conference in October. So, any more discussion on this 2-part motion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries. So, maybe we'll have to discuss something at rules. I don't know. I don't think I understand this myself. Maybe someone else understands it better than I do, but let's go on to agenda item number 14, WCA summary and future participation.
1 second here, Mr. Chair. I'm looking for a motion to accept a report from the attending county board supervisors and the county administrator. The background on this is Supervisors Brewer, Luck, and Carroll attended the 2021 Wisconsin Counties Association meeting hosted by La Crosse County. The event brought forward information, developments, and expert guidance regarding the spectrum of county services and issues facing Wisconsin counties. Attached, you will find access to Wisconsin County's conference agenda. On the summary sheet, you'll find notes from participants have been consolidated by the administrator and will be available by request. I did not add them on here as they're kind of in a note formatted to make sure that publicly things aren't being taken out of context in notes, but if supervisors would like a request of the summarized notes, I can make those available. Obviously, it all came through email too, so it is a public record. If other folks want to listen, can have access to it as well. And then there's the verbal report from a Q&A on items to be given if any supervisors wanted to talk on it. As Supervisor Brewer mentioned, kind of one of the most impacting ones was at the conclusion of the conference. They had a very nice presentation regarding cybersecurity and protecting your system. They iterated on several points that it's not a matter of if you are attacked through a hacking, phishing type of a scheme, it's when you're attacked. I did have initial discussions with Director Scott regarding our current plans and configurations, and it's something that we're hoping to bolster some of our education on, as well as I plan on bringing some changes on how our system is here in the near future to help promote more safety. Mr. Chair.
Okay, and then how many supervisors were there? We had 3, or?
We had Supervisor Brewer, Supervisor Luck, Supervisor Carroll, and myself.
Okay, so 3 supervisors were there. Okay, so obviously, yeah, your point you were making before, Mr. Brewer, that you'd like to see more people come there. I'm sure there's a way to encourage more of that.
Mr. Chair?
We didn't even discuss the WCA coming up at any of our board meetings, so and that's my fault. I did not push it.
Okay, Supervisor Luck?
I just wanted to say that I've been to 2 of the WCA conferences now, and I've found both of them to be incredibly helpful. Not only do you get to talk with other county supervisors and meet people from other areas of the state, but also the presentations, not all of them are fantastic, but most of the presentations are incredibly helpful. So I have always felt it's worth my time.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman,
Yep, Mr. Seat.
for Mr. Langrick, would it be appropriate to ask for a summary of your report, of the report from the conference? Add that as in the packet of the minutes?
Yeah, I can send you a copy, Supervisor Seat.
Okay. It
Okay,
won't,
so-
in other words, the report, you're not, I was thinking about putting it on the website as a summary report attached to the minutes.
Mr. CP, he already told us that he'd rather not do that.
All right,
what
that's
he
fine.
has right now are notes, but he said he'll send those to you.
Yep.
So, and then did we get a motion to accept this report? Okay, thanks, Mr. Cooey, for keeping me on track here. I was losing track of motions. So looking for a motion to accept that report. Motion by Cooey.
I'll second.
Second by Brewer. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries. So thanks for those who did go and for that report. Agenda item number 15 under closing, Administrator Strategic Goal Tracking Reports.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to accept the proposed, this should have been updated, the proposed tracking list of the administrator or accept report. To review, we did have postponement of several items that were on this. It was initially put together when the new incoming board came. To kind of get right to cut to the chase here. Tracker looks like this at the moment. We have the last time we took a good look at this was back on May. Then we got very involved with budgeting items, and this kind of got pushed to the back burner, bringing it back to the forefront. The development of a long-term strategic plan. We have continued conversations with now a county planning county strategic plan committee that is put in place, in which we're taking actions to finalize a strategic plan with the assistance of Southwest Regional Planning. transition to finance and HR from the county clerk's office has been completed. We do have one final bit of the maneuvering with the room once the new S400 system is stood up. Making resolutions and ordinances available and organized on the internet. We do have anticipations of using potential ARPA funds next year for codification of the ordinances. So we do have continued movement on that with development. More uniformed HR policies has been postponed through action by the county board back in in May. Implementation of new uniform performance review program. We did amend that to department heads. It is caught stagnant with other actions that are going on, but I'm hoping to reconvene now that we're kind of past the budget cycle. Added complications with some of our staffing here could be a challenge yet, but I'm hoping by the end of the session that we still have that complete. We also postponed development plan for funding for more broadband, though we did take action in committing $200,000 from ARPA funds towards that for the Cazenovia project. Development of finance and purchasing policy, again postponed, but have had continued discussions on what we need to do with purchasing policy to include our different bids and some other pieces, including service cards. Development new county board member orientation program. We're hoping to have this in place for the new county board that comes on in April, and we do have bits and pieces moving on that. Full review of county handbook addendums and administrative manual. We did have different actions through that through the administrator transition committee review of the handbook in development, but looking to reconvene against that with that post budget. We did complete on our partnership with Southwest Regional Planning, as well as completion on development of development of policy and procedures for complaints. And then we also have completed development of a compensation classification plan, which was finalized, I believe, in July, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so are you looking for a motion to accept
the report? Yes, sir.
the report? Okay.
Yep, thank you.
So
I'll make
what
that
do we-
motion.
Okay, motion by Luck. I'll go ahead and second it. Any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Agenda item number 16, future agenda items. Supervisor Luck, do you have any?
Sorry, I was shaking my head. No.
Okay, Supervisor Seep?
No, not at this time.
Okay, Supervisor Cooey? Supervisor Brewer?
And that would be to further our discussion on encouraging vaccination, recruiting the Health and Human Services Department. So looking for a future discussion and then probably a meeting with those people. Procedure or strategy developed.
Okay, well, I'll get in touch with Supervisor Severson, since he's the chair of HHS board, and then I'm sure Mr. Langreich will talk to Ms. Thorson too, so thank you for that. Okay, that takes us to
Sean
agenda.
is carrying me here.
Oh, yeah,
I heard my name. I wasn't paying attention, but
that's totally okay. I'm going to be getting in touch with you about a joint meeting between the Finance and Personnel Committee and the Health and Human Services Board to talk about vaccinations for employees.
I see.
Okay,
All right.
thanks for being here today. So that takes us to agenda item number 17, and I think Mr. Langreich would like to propose going to monthly meetings now, right? Since we're done with our budget process and
For the remainder of the year, yes, Mr. Chair, I'd recommend that we do one in November, the next date, then November 2nd, and then from there on, we do one in December, December 7th.
okay, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, November 2nd at 1 p.m.
I'll move.
Motion by Cooey,
I'll second.
second by Luck. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.